The Arcadion is Final Fantasy XIV's best raid. Let's find out why. Hello Void, it's Eldon, and I have been having a great time with the Arcadion, Dawntrail's premier raid series. And, spoiler, I think it's 14's best raid to date. Now, the reason I think this is very specific. But before we get into it, and how 14 should learn from the Arcadion going into the future, let's go over how the Arcadion stacks up in all the important categories. Let's start with story, and I'm going to throw lore in here because those two are pretty tied together. Now, if we're talking lore, I don't think the Arcadion is really a standout, and honestly, it was never intended to be. 14 will often use a raid series as an important opportunity to expand a portion of the lore beyond what can be presented in the MSQ. We've covered what happened with Bahamut, saving the first, and hell, we've even explored Laha Brea's backstory. And the Arcadion, I suppose, helps expand Alexandria. It gives us some solid foundation and sees some people abandoning regulators, but really, that's all. And at the end of the day, I don't really care that much about what's going on with Alexandria. When we're looking at the wider implications to the story as a whole, I don't think Alexandria will really be relevant when it comes to exploring shards to come. The actual story, however, is another story entirely. I should probably change how I say that. We're keeping it in. When I look at the story of a raid tier, I'm looking for the moment-to-moment experience and the emotions evoked by the events depicted. The Arcadian story is awesome. I think the choice to focus on new characters and make their story as compelling as it was really smart. We don't have any scions interjecting, it's just us exploring and meeting these new people and testing our mettle in a fun tournament. It's the perfect story for the vacation expansion. Additionally, I think the actual point and emotional resonance of the story are on par with many of the other raid tiers. No, I'm not saying that the story here is better or even more interesting. I think that there are certainly many other raid tiers that, just based on the characters presented and featured, have a lot more emotional impact. But I think the story of this cat girl and her family and this sickness is compelling enough and comes to a solid conclusion. However, this overarching narrative is not where Arcadion really shines, because where Arcadion excels as a story is in how much actually happens in each patch. Normally, you have a setup scenario, and you'll go into maybe about the third or fourth fight before you get either a big reveal or a big twist. And then we have a final boss that maybe shakes things up, maybe reveals something, and then we're through. Next patch. This story structure is fine enough, and often a necessity based on the 4-fight nature of a raid tier. Yet in Arcadion, there are more beats per patch. Each fight feels like its own event, and inside of it changes the context around which the rest of the patch plays out. We'll have interactions with characters, lead up, build up, and development of them and how they interact with us as a person. Oftentimes there'll be twists in and around the matches and how they present themselves. All of this is because of the framing device for the raid tier. It's similar to Omega in the fighting structure, but instead of filling it with mostly filler, each step in the raid tier becomes part of the tournament, becomes based around characters that we interact with. It's 3 smaller stories stacked back to back instead of one larger story spread over 3 patches. I think going forward, 14 would do well to remember the kind of setup used here in this scenario, and make every raid tier thrive in the same way by including more events per patch, so that it feels like a grander tale instead of a series of smaller events. And if they keep looking to the Arcadion, I think they'll be able to find the key on how to do that. The next category I want to look at is fights. Now, I'm going to be honest, I am not a Savage Raider. I've progged the first half of the first fight in the tier for each of the 2 tiers so far, and hell, this video is coming out like days ahead of Tier 3 Savage release. If I were to say why I'm not a Savage Raider, it'd probably be 1, I don't like Party Finder. I think progging for an hour and then someone leaving is really demoralizing, then the hour-long reprogs just to get to the same point in progression for someone to leave again is just as upsetting. I don't really enjoy slogging through a wall of PF requests only to get halfway through in a day and leave. If I really had the gumshoe, I could probably do it, but it's just not worth it to me. Add that on to the fact that I don't really have the free time to do a hardcore static, and that every casual static I've joined has consisted of one very tired veteran player, a couple of their friends and partners, and a few other randoms, all of who somehow cannot study ahead of time and learn mechanics for the life of them, has ended up with me just not clearing a lot of fights. And honestly, I don't really feel the need to. I mean, the gear is nice, but the gear is there to help me clear, and I don't need to clear, so it's sort of a self-fulfilling cycle. Anyway, what I do play is a lot of normal raids, and I think the normal raids this expansion have been just incredible. Now, there are 12 fights, so we're not going to get into details on every single one of them, but I think each and every fight has done the two things I expect a normal fight to do, and do well. One is be capable of wiping you week 1. If there are enough surprising and interesting mechanics, and it deals enough damage that you on a fresh prog party can wipe once or twice, I think that's enough for the normal experience as a whole to satisfy. Especially with the environment we're in, with the job design and the relative difficulty. Obviously, I'd love for it to scale up, but I'll take what I can get, and every fight has felt at least somewhat threatening week 1. The second thing I expect from a normal raid is one that's achieved much less often. I think every fight should have something interesting. One moment that in the fight captures your attention and captivates you. Be it our showdown at the end of Wicked Thunder, the arena change on Brute Abominator, or even the newest tier with the revival of the Lindworm, each fight in Arcadion does something that sparks joy, something that really makes you think, now this is a fight. Hopefully in the future, 14 can keep up this level of fight design, keep up this level of interest, of interesting mechanics, of gimmicks. I don't want any more hegemonies with their simple play out the mechanics, simple evolution. I don't want any more Hippocampus. I don't want any more Leviathan. I want each fight to have a moment that feels interesting, that captures me, that makes me think, now this is a cool raid tier. If 14 can keep up this level moving into 8.0, I think I'd be satisfied. Could it be better? Yes. Could it be harder? Oh, certainly. But I think difficulty is a wider pattern that won't necessarily be resolved solely in the normal raid fights, so even if it doesn't get resolved there, I think I'd still be happy if the future of 14 raiding is as good as this. Alright, the next category we need to cover for why Arcadion is so good is the music. And, well, do I even have to go into detail on this? Arcadion has the best music of any raid tier in 14. I'm not saying it necessarily has the best song. I think Rise and Escape got hands, but as far as consistent, amazing music goes, Arcadion gaps. I think it probably comes down to the fact that every fight in Arcadion has its own unique music. Every single fight has a banger soundtrack that makes it feel different from the next. And when we compare this to fights in older raid tiers, the middling fights, the filler fights, those ones feel less unique because the soundtrack says this is just another tier 2. Nothing interesting here. But in Arcadion, every single fight has the theme of the wrestler we're facing. We've been facing each in different fields, different textures, different environments, and these have informed the fight and the personality of our opponent. It says in the moment that every fighter matters, that every one of them is a character worthy of facing us. And also, they all slap. Now, I can't go into too much detail, but, you know, I do have a little bit more time in this section. I mean, there's only a couple words so far, so... you know what, screw it. We're gonna rank all the Arcadion raid tier musics. Quick interlude time. Alright, we got a couple tiers here. Let's start with A tier. Here, we only have M1. I think this is the only non-absolute banger, and that's just because it's a tamer version of a song that plays later on. Also, Arms, It sounds like an ARMS song. I just can't get that in my head. Just listen to it. It's from ARMS. S- tier, these are just the songs that I probably wouldn't put on full blast. They're still bangers, but I don't know. They're just not for me specifically. Here we've got both Brute Bombers, M9, M11, and M8. Now, am I gonna turn these ones off? Hell no. There's a minus, but they still go so hard. Better by far than the bass music in any other raid tier, and they inform the characters excellently. Now we've got S tier. These are the songs I'm putting on full blast every time they show up. First up, M10. The Surfer song, hell yeah, incredible. Next is M6. I was just never traumatized by it in Savage, so I just think it's super fun. I think the lyrics are incredible. Now we have M5. Come on, it's just groovy. Look at this guy. He's having a great time with the frogs, everything. Just such an interesting texture to open a tier with. Now, lastly, we've got the S+ tier. These are the songs that are perfect, iconic. Wicked Thunder's theme is immaculate, a perfect culmination of her character, and it just goes so hard. And do I even need to mention Tom Morello with Everything Burns? This song slaps beginning to end. And finally, we have our queen, Honeybee Lovely. She gets the top spot. She slayed. B is for beauty. Ooh! It's just so good. I just enjoy this music so much, guys. I just think it's really cool. I just think it was a great time. All right, we gotta move on. We need to move on to the actual best part of Arcadion, the bosses. Dark Souls 1 is a very good game, but when we look at it overall, there is one thing that's missing compared to the later entries in its spiritual series, and that is the number of good bosses. For some reason, Dark Souls 1 only has a couple good bosses. The same can be said with every raid tier up until Arcadion. There's just a few that don't hit. Do you know how Dark Souls made their bosses into their greatest feature? Made every boss a banger? I think they figured out in Bloodborne. It's all in the name. A nameless boss is only a challenge. It's only a hill, somewhat larger than those you've climbed before. However, once you give a boss a name, once you give it a personality, they become more than merely an obstacle. They become your opponent. An important boss should have a name. They should be someone you can test yourself against, someone you can have a back and forth with. When I'm getting killed by Hippocampus in P2, I don't think, damn you, Hippocampus. I think, well, that sucks. And that's because I don't think of Hippocampus as an enemy. It's a monster. It's an obstacle. Arcadion is the first raid tier in 14 to give every boss a name. Every boss here has a personality, a character. After the fight, they aren't gone for good. You can talk to them. You can hang out with them. They even help you in the story. Every boss here is your opponent. And that means you can care about every boss. At the end of the day, this is what I hope 14 brings into all of its future raid tiers. I hope that this lesson has stuck and that they've learned the true path to make 12 great bosses. Every great boss needs a name, needs a personality, and hopefully they design future raid tiers to give each of them to give each boss a character and a name. Now, I don't imagine we'll be doing a wrestling arc in every future expansion. That would probably be boring, but even if we don't do wrestling, there are a lot of ways to give a raid tier a large number of enemies that each deserve a name. If we do end up with a Void expansion for 8.0, which is my prediction, we could do a large carnival raid, with each fight being against a different member of the circus. All I ask is that from now on, whenever we're asked to do a big fight, except for like maybe one per tier, I think we get one freebie. All I ask is that they give us an opponent, someone we can match ourselves with. I'm tired of obstacles. I'm tired of filler fights. I think from now on, a raid tier should be the domain of our true opponents. They should also all get really cool songs, and they should also be really fun and have cool spectacle moments, and they should all have a cool story attached to them, but now I'm just being greedy. Also, sleeper 5th thing is Metem. Metem was amazing. The announcer is incredible. It just really adds to every single one of the fights. The reactions, the active time, talking is just so awesome. It doesn't really fit in the wider narrative for a lot of other scenarios, so we might lose it, but I really think they should add something like Metem to every future raid tier. For the carnival idea, we could have the ringleader do announcements for all the fights. That would be really cool. I don't know, I'm just trying to come up with something, because Metem should be included in like every future raid tier. It just adds so much. Alright, now that officially brings us to the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. I really enjoy seeing the number go up. I think we should be almost or just above 200 subscribers right now. If you have any thoughts or just want to gush about your own feelings about the tier, head down to the comments and hey, give me your ranking of all the different musics. I'm interested in hearing that. As for next week, I will officially be launching my video games demo next Sunday. So I'm probably going to make the video next Sunday about that. If you're interested, my game is called Pilgrim Unto Shadow. It's a 0D action RPG. It'll come out next Sunday, so stay tuned for that video. I think it's really fun, and I hope you'll enjoy it if you want to check it out, but, you know, you're watching here, you're here to talk about Arcadion, so regardless. I hope to continue to release videos every Sunday, and if you like this, my thoughts on 14, stick around and enjoy. And even if you don't remember, or don't want to, just keep in mind that it's a long road out there, Void, so take it easy. And B is for beautiful.